Have you ever stopped to think about why every single time Daemon Targaryen appears on screen, you just can't look away, even when he's doing something that should make you hate him? That's not a coincidence. That's character building at the highest level television has produced in years. And with House of the Dragon's third season on its way, we need to have this conversation right now. Because if you don't truly understand Daemon, you're going to watch season 3 missing half of what's actually happening. So, let's break this man down from the beginning. No filler. The Prince King Viserys never wanted to be. Daemon was born the second son, and if you know Targaryen history, you already know what that means. All the weight of the name, none of the inheritance. He grew up staring at a throne that would never be his, and that shaped every inch of who he became. But here's the detail most people miss. Daemon wasn't resentful because he was weak. He was resentful because he was arguably the most capable man in the family, a born warrior, an exceptional dragon rider, a brilliant strategist. While Viserys ruled with kindness and hesitation, Daemon understood something his brother never wanted to accept. Power without the willingness to use it isn't power, it's decoration. Caraxes, his dragon, says everything about who he is. While the other Targaryen dragons are imposing and majestic, Caraxes is twisted, aggressive, almost ugly in how wild he looks. They call him the Bloodworm for a reason. He's the exact reflection of his rider, dangerous in a way that doesn't fit the mold, but that nobody on the battlefield ever dares to underestimate. The Hand of the King, the City Watch, and the Stepstones. Before the main events of the series, Daemon had already built a resume that mixes glory and scandal in equal measure. He commanded the City Watch of King's Landing and turned that disorganized gang of corrupt guards into a force that actually worked. The method? Brutal. He cut off hands, punished severely, made the watch into something people feared to disrespect. It worked. Crime dropped, but the way it worked made Viserys uncomfortable, and the court even more so. Then came the Stepstones, a years-long campaign against the Triarchy in impossible terrain, against an enemy that used guerrilla tactics across treacherous islands. Daemon went there almost alone, well, with Caraxes, and he won. He spent so long in that conflict that people started calling him the King of the Narrow Sea, and he even put a makeshift crown on his head just to provoke. That was Daemon being Daemon, capable of winning wars others wouldn't even dare start, but incapable of playing the political game without making enemies along the way. The thing with Rhaenyra and why that relationship is the heart of the show. Hand on heart, does the relationship between Daemon and Rhaenyra make you uncomfortable, or does it fascinate you? Because it does both at the same time, and that's entirely the point. Daemon was the uncle who actually saw Rhaenyra when her own father was still trying to figure out what to do with his daughter. He was the one who treated her as someone capable, someone worthy of learning what the Targaryens truly were, not the sanitized version the court wanted to force down everyone's throat. He took her into the streets of King's Landing. He introduced her to the real world, raw and imperfect. And then the line between mentorship and something far more complicated started to blur. Their relationship was forbidden, taboo, whispered about in court hallways with horror, but the show never lets you forget that something genuine was there, as unsettling as it was. When they finally marry, after years of separation, turmoil, and other marriages, it feels less like a fairy tale and more like two jagged pieces finding where they fit, not because they're perfect together, because they're equal in intensity, in ambition, in their refusal to be less than what they believe they deserve. Daemon loved Rhaenyra, but Daemon also loved Daemon, and the show had the courage to show both at the same time. The Dance of the Dragons and the weight of choosing a side. When the Dance of the Dragons began, Daemon didn't hesitate for a single second. The Blacks, always the Blacks. But it's naive to think it was purely marital loyalty. Daemon saw in Rhaenyra the continuation of everything he believed the Targaryens should be: fierce, decisive, worthy of dragonblood. Aegon too represented the court, the Hightowers, the system that had always pushed him to the margins. Choosing Rhaenyra was on some level choosing himself. What followed was war, and war was something Daemon knew how to do. He fought on multiple fronts, seized Harrenhal, a fortress that carried curse after curse and that nobody wanted even for free. Daemon went there and stayed. He went through what appeared to be a mental collapse inside those walls, visions, dreams that felt more real than the ground beneath his feet. The show portrayed it viscerally, and anyone who's read Fire and Blood knows that what happened at Harrenhal still divides interpretations to this day.
Something was breaking inside him, or maybe something was finally revealing itself. Aemond, the confrontation that stopped time. There are scenes that television produces once every many years. The battle above the God's Eye is one of them. Daemon and Aemond, uncle and nephew, caraxes against Vhagar, a duel in the sky between two of the greatest living dragons, above a lake that had kept its secret since before the Targaryen conquest. What made that moment so heavy wasn't just the visual spectacle, it was what each man represented. Aemond was the future of the Greens, disciplined, cold, mounted on the largest dragon in the world. Daemon was Daemon, older, more worn down, but still carrying that flame that no war had ever managed to put out. And then he jumped. Without caraxes, without a safety net, armed only with Dark Sister, the Valyrian sword he carried like an extension of his own body, he leapt from a dying dragon onto Vhagar and drove the blade into Aemond's eye as both of them plummeted into the lake. Neither of them surfaced. Daemon Targaryen died the way he lived, making the impossible look inevitable. What remains before Season 3? With the third season approaching, the weight of Daemon will be felt even without him on screen, and perhaps in ways we still can't measure fully. Rhaenyra lost the man who was at the same time her greatest ally and her most constant source of conflict. Their children carry pure Targaryen blood from two lines. Caraxes survived the lake, wounded in a state that left everyone without answers for months. And Harrenhal still holds whatever it was that Daemon saw or did during those days of madness, and the show has clearly not finished exploring that. Daemon was not a hero. He never tried to be. He was the kind of man that an era of war produces and then doesn't know what to do with when peace arrives. Too dangerous to ignore, too uncontrollable to tame. But he was real, more real than most fantasy characters television has ever put on screen. Matt Smith built something rare, a villain you root for, a hero you fear, a man you'd never want as an enemy, but who, deep down, in some small and honest part of you, you want to understand from the inside. Before Season 3 begins, it was worth revisiting every choice he made, every contradiction, every moment where he could have been different and consciously decided to be exactly who he was. The war will continue, the dragons will burn, the throne will bleed, but Daemon has already said everything he had to say. The question is, did we go far enough to actually hear it?